Good morning. I'm so excited to be bringing this video to you guys. It is 26 books for 2026. Now, I don't know if you guys know, but I am quite the reader, so I wanted to share this list with you guys if you wanted some ideas or just like life updates in general, because this list is kind of like it's teasing some things about life at the moment. So yeah, and I apologize in advance for the banging. We've got some work going on in my backyard, so there's going to be a bit of construction work, but hopefully it's not too distracting. But yeah, let's get into it. Now, I don't have the copies for all of these, so some of these will be digital books or audiobooks, but I'll kind of say it as I go. So first up, I'm going to be doing a few rereads for a few different reasons. One, I love doing rereads. I love books, and honestly, I love revisiting them. So I actually try to be really meticulous about the books I have on my shelf. So I literally only have books that I know I'm going to reread. And anything else that's not on that level, it's gone. So I take my rereading very seriously. So this year I'm going to be rereading the Prison Healer trilogy. I'm so excited to reread this because Lynette Noni is one of my favorite authors, and she's just the goat. She's just the goat. I really love how she writes characters, and her plots really leveled up in this book, I won't lie. I felt like this series was pretty fast paced. I mean, this first book was a little bit slower, but I still felt like it was really fun to watch. I mean, a healer inside a prison is pretty intense. But I really enjoyed this, and the plot twists were really cool, and honestly, I aspire to write a novel like this. So something you should know about me, if you don't know me, is that one, I am chronically ill, so I have a lot of time to read on my hands, and I also am writing a novel next year, which is one of my really big goals, one of my lifelong goals. So I'm really keen to read books that kind of are feeding my creative well, but also are kind of in my genre. So this book is really fun for the intensity, the secrets, the coming of age story, and all of that. So very excited to reread this series. Next up, I have Six of Crows, and I have actually already started rereading this one, and it is one of my favorite books, honestly. I've tabbed it up. This book is probably one of the biggest inspirations for the novel I'm writing. It's following, five povs in this book. There's lots of secrets, the world building is so cool, the atmosphere is insane, the characters are stunning, and also just the banter is absolute goals. So I am reading this meticulously and taking notes, especially for the heist aspect, because my book has a heist. So I'm very excited to be rereading this one. Leigh Bardugo is one of my favourite authors as well, although I haven't been able to read her new novels because they're very adult fantasy and dark, I've heard, so I probably won't be reading those just yet, maybe never, because I'm more of a lighthearted person, and honestly, this has some pretty dark themes, but it's done in a way that feels kind of more toned down, which I really appreciate, and so it's got all that morally grey, little bit of violence, but it's not too bad. If you know what I mean, there's a real line here, but very inspired by this book. Lovely Bardugo. Rereading this. Fahrenheit 451. I am so excited to reread this. The first time I read this, I read it in a week, which is probably quite long for some readers, but I'm actually an incredibly slow reader, which is quite interesting about me. I feel like some people think because I read a lot of books, it's because I read fast, but that is so not true. It takes me quite a while to get through books, even short ones that are under 300 pages. It takes me a while. And that's because I have to pace and stuff. But I love Fahrenheit 451. It is so punchy, and it is to the point and emotional and like thrilling. Like, it really just takes you on this adventure that you want to see through. And that ending, oh my gosh. I really appreciate how this story went. It was very intentional, and I just can't believe that this writer there's no chapters. Like, I don't get how he structured it. I don't get how Ray Bradbury structured this novel without chapters, because it's very streamlined, but it's broken up into parts, but there aren't any chapters, so, you have to stop at your own will, that's for sure. But this was a very fun one. I'm very excited to be inspired by the dystopian society because my novel is based in a dystopian society, so yeah. I'm really hoping to reread Brandon Sanderson's The Final Empire. I actually haven't finished the third novel because I actually don't know why. I got distracted reading other stuff, but I'm really keen to revisit it because The Final Empire blew me away. Plot-wise, character-wise, world building, the magic system was stunning. Honestly, if my book could look like anything, I would love it to have the atmosphere and just world building of the Mistborn trilogy. It was epic, man. It was so epic, and I'm so excited to revisit it with just a bit more attention, because the first time I read it, I was just there for a good time, having so much fun and being on an adventure. But this time, I'm more wanting to study it and just learn kind of how he's balanced world building, character arcs, secrets, and all of that now that I know lots of stuff. And I'm definitely going to read the third book when I get up to it. So we're rereading that, and I'm so excited for that. And I got it on audiobook, and I so recommend doing audiobook because it is epic on audiobook. Like, it's actually a pretty heavy novel, in my opinion. For a modern novel, lots of novels are kind of quite easy to read these days, but Brandon Sanderson just packs in so much story, which is so great, but it can be a little tiring, so I definitely recommend, if you're intimidated, trying the audiobook because you'll appreciate it so much more. Now, just novels for my novel. So these are novels that I really feel like my novel will be similar to, and so I'm really keen to just read them and study them. That's a really big thing this year, as I'm going to be studying books, and what that means is just reading them and observing how they're balancing character arcs, secrets, world building, just all those types of things. There's a lot of things you have to kind of juggle while writing a novel, to write a really good novel, in my opinion. So I'm really trying to take the time to slow down and just really appreciate the novel for what it is, and just the artistry that went into it, as well as the layers of world building. So one of those novels is Babel, and it is a stunning novel, can I just say. Well, the cover is so pretty. It looks like actual metal. I've heard amazing things about it. I've heard it is a little dark at times, which makes sense because it's a dark academia. But I'm really excited for this because my novel is it's not quite dark academia, but it's in an academia setting. And so it's very fantasy. So I'm trying to read a lot of dark academia because I want to add that kind of aspect into mine. Mine crosses a lot of genres, so you'll see a lot of genres in my kind of research category. We're reading everything this year, that's for sure, as I kind of self-teach myself how to write a good novel. So yeah, I'm really excited to read this. The setting in my novel is also inspired by Oxford University because I love that place. The layers of history is stunning, honestly, and I just love Oxford. I would love to go to Oxford University just to have a cup of coffee, spend some writing time there. I would be so happy for that. If only it wasn't a 30-hour plane flight from Australia, I would be doing that. I'm really excited to just get the atmosphere and also just like read a book where they balance kind of curriculum aspects that feed this world building but also character arcs. So I think that'll be really interesting, and I've heard really great things. Book of the year, that's a good sign it's going to be good. I better not talk about books too much, otherwise this video is going to be really long. But yeah, Babel's one of them. Next up, I got the Red Rising trilogy for Christmas, and I'm so excited for this. I've heard some really great things. I can't believe that, I can't believe that Pierce Brown wrote this in 3 months. I'm actually a little bit mad about that, because people are just saying that it's stunning. Like, it's a sci-fi space opera, dystopia, and he wrote it in 3 months. I'm sorry, but like, bro's got talent. Okay, leaves them for the rest of us. But I'm really excited to dive into this because I think it's going to be pretty epic. And I feel like the scale of this is something that I want to embody in my novel as well. I think it's going to be heartbreaking. I think it's going to be epic. I think it's going to be challenging in all the right ways. So I've got the trilogy. And I think this series is going to be quite similar to the vibe, scale, and epicness of the trilogy that I'm writing. So I'm really keen to study this, see what he's done and what makes his novels stand out, to kind of think about how I can make my novels stand out. So yeah, moving on. And then 2 novels I don't have on my physical TBR but will probably get from the library are Ender's Game and Red Queen. Ender's Game sounds really cool because it's kind of, again, in that academic setting, but it's also preparing for something a little bit extra, something a little bit sci-fi-ish, and I think that's really cool. I have watched the movie recently because I couldn't wait to read the book, and it felt very rushed, so hopefully the book is more, chilled out. He's actually taking the time to explore themes as well as developing the plot. But I think that kind of structure and also just like putting so much on kids' shoulders is something that will be similar to my novel. So yeah, and then Red Queen, that's a YA fantasy novel, I believe. I'm researching that one just because there's like multiple paths, a lot of politics and secrets and history and whatnot, so I think that'll be really good. And then Legend, that was another one. I've heard that's a really good YA dystopia, and that sounds really sick. So I've got a few YA dystopias. Another thing about Red Rising is I've heard it kind of bridges YA to adult fiction, and I think I want my novel to do that. So it is kind of coming of age in the beginning, novel 1, but novel 2 and 3 kind of move to a more mature story, because it's exploring some pretty heavy topics and the characters are a bit older as well. So yeah, that's where we're at with novels for my novel. And then the next category is kind of less specific and just wide reading. So these aren't necessarily like my novel, but I just want to read so widely in preparation for writing my novel. And I shouldn't say in preparation because I have already written half of it, and at the moment I'm taking the time to research and fill in the plot holes that are there and whatnot. So we're quite on our way to doing that stuff. So stay tuned for videos on that because they are coming out very soon. Honestly, these books have no correlation to any categories. They're going to be super random, so let's pump them out. Number 1, If We Were Villains. Got that for Christmas. Super excited. Some dark academia, kids taking plays way too far. And I've got a really nice copy here, which I'm so excited to read. Don't mind me. The smell of books can never get old, honestly. If there was a perfume that was like the smell of books, so good. Temple, I've heard that's really good. It's like a thriller, so I'm really excited to read some thrillers because, well, I don't really have a justification for that reason, but, fast-paced, stuff like that, all good. The Silent Patient, really curious to read that one. Heard some really good reviews. I've heard it's a thriller. I've heard there's some psychological aspects, some secrets, some plot twists. Super keen for that. The Ministry of Time. My novel is based off manipulating time and traveling in time a little bit. So I really want to read novels in that genre, but obviously the Ministry of Time is nothing like how I plan to execute time travel and time manipulation and whatnot. All the Light We Cannot See, historical fiction. My novel has historical aspects, so keen to read that. Jane Eyre, that's a classic that I'm really keen to read. 1984, a dystopian classic that I'm really keen to read, but will be heavy, so I will probably be reading that very slowly and carefully for the sake of my mental health. Frankenstein, I found out that the person who wrote it, I can't remember her name right now, was 18 when she wrote it, and she was living in a time period that was kind of looking down on women writing really intense stories, and so she wrote that to prove that women feel deeply and can write about really dark topics, and that is so sick. I'm really keen to read that book, keeping in mind that she was brave enough to do that, and her statement resounded through history because Frankenstein is a really big kind of piece of media in history. There's a new movie come out recently, which I'm kind of keen to see, but we'll see if it's too dark or whatever, because I have my limits, that's for sure. But keen to read that. Brave New World is another classic, which I'm super keen to read. Super keen for lots of dystopias pretty much at the moment, just learning about political systems and how characters work and how characters move from ignorance to kind of fully knowing that their society is not good, because a lot of the time a society will appear good. It's that whole half-truths make good lies or whatever. And then we've got Project Hail Mary. I'm almost finished that book. It is really good. So keen to read more of Andy Weir. He is a legend at writing. I love that he was an engineer before he wrote it, and that he sold The Martian on Amazon for $1 for a little while before he got published, and then was forced to sell it for more. Absolute legend for that. So sick. I feel like I will do that with my novel if I don't get a publisher, because I just want to share it with you guys. So yeah, that's the logic there. Then we have a category for enjoyment, and I'm going to let myself slow down for a little moment now, because less specific was kind of just like really random. So next category is enjoyment, and these books, yes, I'm studying them, but I'm also just there to be having a great time, and some of these books don't actually have a purpose. I recently finished this duology of novellas, A Psalm for the Wild Bill and A Prayer for the Crown Shy. They were so cozy. Literally, I admired the world building so much, and I just want to read more books kind of like that. The first book is The Hobbit, which I am obsessed with this cover. It is like, it's so simple yet beautiful. As you can see, I really appreciate a good cover, and I really want my novel to have a fire cover. It's a necessity, really. So I'm just kind of keeping an eye out for what I really like in a cover. I am really keen to read J.R.R. Tolkien. I really want to learn about what makes this guy such a legend, and I want to read everything he's ever written, pretty much. Actually, that's going to take a long time. I take it back. I'm going to read his really iconic works, and if I like it, I will dive deeper, because there's a lot of lore going into the Lord of the Rings world, if that's what you call it. Middle-earth. I'm sorry guys, I'm a noob. I promise I will be getting better eventually. But I really love the Inklings. J.R. Tolkien was really good friends with C.S. Lewis and a few other like creatives in the Oxford world, and I adore them. I would love to be a part of the Inklings. If there was a girl version in history, I would travel in time and have tea with them and chat about books. That would be my absolute dream. But I'm really excited to soak up The Hobbit for all it's worth, and I think it would just be really cozy, adventurous, and I can't wait to see his world building. And next on the enjoyment one is the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and I've got a very old copy. Let me just take my Rubik's Cube off. This trilogy was my mum's when she was young, and it is so old. Stop looking at me, camera. Yes, I am so excited for these. I can't wait to get lost into the world. I think it'll be pretty epic. I think it'll be hard to read, so it'll definitely be slow. But I'm excited to read what makes him so renowned. And I heard that he kind of brought back to life fantasy as a genre. And I'm really excited to just see how he did that. And so grateful, because I love fantasy as a genre, and I think it's such a cool thing to read about. And I love that humans are so creative. And so I adore Tolkien for that. If you're wondering, I did henna with my sister the other day, and she drew some fish on me. That's her signature right there. She's an artist. She's very cool at that. I did a little flower on myself. Henna's pretty cool. You just draw on yourself and it stays for a week or two. And this is my favourite one. Be Still. It's my favourite verse, and I love that it's written very shakily, almost in contrast to the message it says. So yeah, that's that. The final thing on my enjoyment category is the Chronicles of Narnia. I love C.S. Lewis. Like, he is my favourite author of mankind. And then Lynette Noni is probably second. And I haven't read a lot of his books, honestly. I've read a lot of his more renowned classics, like Screwtape Letters. Currently reading The Problem of Pain, which is kind of quite heavy, honestly, but it's led to some really interesting learnings, honestly. But I've got this first book, The Magician's Nephew, and I am so excited to read it because I adore the movies, and I know that the books are better, you know? I know that it's a kid's book, but honestly, I'm super excited to get into it, and I didn't put it on my list, but I'm really excited to read his like more adult sci-fi ones. I can't remember what they're called, but he's got a few sci-fi books and just more adult stories that I'm really keen to read. It is a life goal to read everything he's ever written, and we'll see how we go this year. Honestly, 26 books is quite audacious anyway. I don't know how much I'll read because I've got to finish year 12 next year. So we'll see how that goes, but it's really fun to just think about what's important to me this year. And then my final category is Christian non-fiction, and this category is really important to me. I really love just really feeding myself spiritually at the moment. The Bible is one of the most important books in my life, and I adore getting to dive deeper into aspects of the Bible with some help from like professionals or just people who really love God and just have so much to say on who he is and, just specific problems. So I'm currently reading The Peace God Promises by Anne Spangler. This book has already made me cry so many times. I'm literally, not that far into it, but I'm having so much fun. I think as someone who's chronically ill, it is so important to just really be in God's word and just really preach to myself the peace that God promises. And sometimes the world can feel really overwhelming and I can forget that eternity is before me, and I think this book has just been such a great reminder. It's been so cool to hear other people's stories, like how they have been shaped by Christ in their lives. I've already read some really powerful quotes from people who just have these lives that feel so hard. They've lived through some really awful things, an accident, chronic illness, grief, but they've held on to Christ in a way that is so inspiring. And so I'm really enjoying reading this book. And then the second one is something I'm also reading, is The Problem with Pain, and that is by C.S. Lewis. Now, I read this when I first had a relapse in my CFS, because I really just wanted to understand the innate reason for pain in the broken world. Like, why do we need pain to have free will? So that's what this book is confronting, and it's really big, it's really heavy. C.S. Lewis has really approached it from an academic perspective, which is really great, but it feels a little heavy, so I'm getting to it quite a bit slower, unlike the Peace God Promises, which I am kind of going through quite fast in comparison. But I've been reading it 1 to 2, maybe 3 pages at a time, annotating it like crazy, and I've come to some cool understandings in the first few chapters that I've read so far. And then I really want to read Cold Case Christianity. I really want to give this to a friend, and so I'm really keen to read this. And just I'm not someone who actually really needs scientific evidence, because I believe in my heart that God is real from everything around me, and just my heart knows that I'm sinful and I can't save myself. And even I just feel like everything points to a creator, but there are people in my life who really want scientific evidence, and so I'm really keen to read that book and just solidify my faith in hard facts, because I love learning, and also just be ready to talk about those hard facts with other people, because I'm not the same as everyone, and everyone has different things that make it hard for them to believe or whatever. And I really want to be able to confront those questions with certainty and respect them enough to know that my reasons might not be their reasons. But, once people come to know Christ, my reasons will be their reasons, and their reasons are my reasons as well. So, if that makes sense, that's probably very confusing. The final book on my list, 26, I didn't actually number any of those, is a book my youth leaders gave me when I graduated from youth group, which was not so long ago. Guidance and the Voice of God. God's living word will show you where to go. I don't know much about this book, and honestly, I'm trying not to read the back of it. I'm just trying to dive in. I believe it's kind of... my youth leaders chose it specifically, which is really cool. I think it's about trusting God as you step into big decisions, and, letting God guide you, which is tricky because we only have the word in the Bible. So it's going to approach those questions and how to have discernment about making decisions. So I'm really keen to read it, and I'm reading it slowly. I like to keep one Christian book in my backpack for TAFE, and I'm not currently at TAFE at the moment, so this book has been sitting in my bag, but hopefully once I'm getting out, I like to read something like this on the bus or in between, which is kind of nice. Those were my 26 books for 2026. I'm so excited for the new year. Some big things are coming, and I'm just so excited to keep praising God in a new year and be researching for my novel and just be spending time in some books that people created with their minds, and I'm just so inspired by other people. Let me know what you're reading this year, and if you found any good ideas from my list. So excited to hear what you're getting up to this year. And yeah, so good to sit down and spend some time with you guys, and hope you guys have such a good new year in January. I'll see you in a bit. Bye.